everyone, my name is raavyasarda and welcome to Reverse Talk. So this is our first episode on Reverse Talk podcast show, and I am pleased that waste management is actually talked about. It is something these days people bring up in their conversation. And today on our show, we have Professor Brajesh Dubey, an engineer, researcher, consultant in waste resource management, sustainable engineering, circular economy from IIT Kharagpur. Let's know more about waste management from the professor himself. Please welcome Professor Brajesh Dubey. Hello, sir. Professor Brajesh Dubey. Welcome to Reverse Talk. This is our first podcast episode, and you are our first guest on our show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Sir, can we know about your experience? Like, you are a well-known name in this industry in waste management, and you have worked number of years. Can we know something about yourself? Can our audience know about yourself?
Sure. My bachelor's degree was in 1997 from IIT Kharagpur itself. And then I worked in industry in India for 4 years in oil sector, oil, petrochemicals. I was working for EIL, Engineers India Limited. And then while working for EIL, I found that the waste management side kind of needs some professionals, more and more professionals in the country.
Okay.
So then I decided to go for PhD in 2001. And so since 2001, you can think of, even during the EIL days, but definitely from 2001, I have been working in the waste management sector. First as a graduate student, as a PhD student, then from 2006 January onwards as a professional in different settings, different countries, and trying to help manage waste properly. And that's why I call myself a garbologist. I work with garbage. So although there is it's a garbologist is no term, but it's working with different types of waste, try to do resource recovery, sustainability, and all that. Yeah.
That's a good term, actually. So we have heard for the first time, but yes, it seeks the attention. But sir, how did you get into waste management? What was the reason behind it?
So as I said, that while working for the company, I found that I was doing environmental related stuff for petrochemicals refineries. And I did find that not much expertise was available in hazardous waste and solid waste sector. So whenever I will try to find some answer, it wasn't there. And then I had an inclination to go to academia at some point of time. So I found that this sector requires manpower capacity. So and I applied for PhD, and I got funding to work in this particular sector. So that's how it kind of ended up. And so then it has been just as I said, working as a garbologist for more than 2 decades now.
So you are committed towards saving the environment, and that is the reason you are in waste management, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Correct. So do you practice sustainable waste disposal?
Yeah, I do. Since 2001 until 2015, we used to live overseas. Like I was in US and in Canada, a little bit in New Zealand, and have been to some other countries too. So it was I did see in terms of the waste. If you say about sustainability, one of the aspects is waste management, but there are other aspects as well. You have to look at the water. You have to make sure that you don't waste water, and you do the source segregation of waste properly at home. Say if I'm teaching a course on waste management and I don't do the waste source segregation at my home itself, that doesn't make sense, isn't it? So having some home composting unit at home, it depends if it's in an apartment complex, it becomes difficult. But if you have an individual bungalow type house, you can have a home composter there as well. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I do try to practice sustainability in day-to-day life as well, as much as possible. Yes.
Okay, but sir, what is classed as waste in your role? Why do we discard waste, and why it is important to dispose waste properly? Can we know any 2 methods of waste disposal here?
Yeah, sure. See, waste, we call it a waste, but waste is actually misplaced resource. it's not maybe waste for you and me, but it's a resource for somebody else.
Correct.
For example, if you look at the food waste, we go to restaurant and we kind of we order some food. Sometimes we end up ordering more. That is
Yes.
also not should not be done. But
Right.
we tend to order more, and then there are some leftovers. Sometimes we bring that leftover home and try to use it, but many times we just leave it there and it becomes part of the waste stream. Now that food waste, although we wasted it, restaurant cannot do anything with that, but that food waste can be taken and we can do biomethanation and produce biogas. And
Okay.
that biogas can be used to either do the heating. In cold countries they go for heating. In our country we can go for generating fuel out of that. Even electricity could be generated out of that. So organic waste, as our municipal solid waste rule says, wet and dry. So the wet is, which is the organic fraction, you can you can go for composting, produce organic fertilizer, or you can go for biomethanation, produce biogas, and
Correct.
use that biogas either as energy and other things. So there are those kind of technology things are available. And for the dry part, of course, recycling comes in picture. Waste to energy plants has also some role to play. So there are a variety of technologies out there in which we can manage the waste properly. Yes.
Okay. So, I wanted from you to know now, as you have given these examples, when we go out to eat food, and if the leftover food can also be, used as a resource. But name two things in household that we can use at household level that would support effective waste management.
Yeah, so again, as I said earlier too, like if you are staying in a house where you have some space, you
Correct.
can have home, like you can do home composting in your backyard. You can take your organic waste, cooked food, uncooked food, not put meat and other stuff there because they don't degrade very easily.
Right.
So
Right.
you don't, yeah, but you can do that. Then in terms of so if you do source segregation properly, you do the recyclables, you give it to the proper kapadiwalas or whoever comes in your
Correct.
area. So that way you can help. More and more, if we can keep the waste material clean as our individual homes, if we can keep the waste material clean, it becomes much easier. If we mix everything together, there is no technology actually out there in the world which can do do much with the mixed waste other than putting it in a sanitary landfill.
Right.
So as a household, if we can want to do two things, of course, first, don't produce, try to reduce the waste if you
Correct.
can. Don't try to use double-sided paper printing. If you're doing some printing at home, set up your printer on a double-sided so that you can use you will use half of the paper. That's good for your like money as well. Then try to use your own bags when you go for grocery shopping and all that. That is
Cotton
also
bag.
helps. Cotton bags you can use, or that can be done. And in terms of if you do produce waste, keep the waste, different types of waste segregated, and keep them as clean as possible. If you can keep it clean, then most of the recyclables, there is recycling can be done. For food waste, we can produce compost, biomethanation, as I said. But in that food waste, if you have plastics there, if you have even if one is small AA, AAA battery, then your food waste is gone, because you cannot. You will have enough like cadmium and all those there that your compost will not be of good quality. So those are the things to kind of keep an eye on.
Correct. So as we are getting to know more about waste, but do you think that people know the difference between wet waste and dry waste? You go at so many places. Have you encountered any such incident where people are confused?
Yeah, there is because of when we say wet, it means that anything which has moisture, people think it's wet.
Correct.
And when we say dry, which is anything which is like no moisture, it's dry. But that's not how the solid waste management rules actually defines it. Wet means mostly it's a biodegradable. So it's biodegradable. Yes, most of the biodegradable waste will be wet at most of the time. You will have moisture there, but you can have moisture in plastics too. Like if you are buying, especially now, most of these plastics are being phased down and banned in India. But still, you can get some of those. I have seen even sambars and rasams being served in a plastic, like people take out in plastic. But that is a wet plastic. That's a wet plastic bag, but it's a dry waste. So people get confused there. As you said, that people, where we were in Rajasthan and talking to some of these cities where we're trying to do some sampling, and other places too. People do get confused. They think that anything which has moisture, it's a wet. No, anything which is biodegradable should go into the wet waste. So wet plastic is not a wet waste; it's a dry waste. Wet paper is also, could be, you can put it in if it's in wet, but essentially, as per definition, that's a dry paper, plastic, and glass. If you have a Coca-Cola bottle which still have some Coca-Cola left in there, of course you should take the Coca-Cola out, then you put it there, but it's a dry waste. Then in the dry side, people get confused with say dry leaves. During this, now the winter is coming, we'll have so many leaves coming down, and you will have most of the leaves are pretty dry, and because not much moisture around, and people think that, oh, this is dry, so it should be dry waste. But actually it is wet waste. Actually it is wet waste because it's biodegradable. So there is confusion. So that's the reason why we need to have a lot of education. I keep on saying again and again in different platforms that capacity building, educating the public. Because if we tell people these things, see, those who has taken solid waste class or who are in this particular domain, they will understand the rules definition of wet and dry. But for common people, for a layman, it is quite natural for them to get confused. So we have to have some flyers, some newspaper advertisements, and variety of things. It is done as in terms of the education outreach to educate the people that this is what actually wet, this is what actually dry, and that's how we can probably help on that.
And I think we at Reverse Talk are doing that. We are helping out people, we are educating them. So let's say, for example, when we talk about these spoons, the wooden spoons we get in the market, which are for use and throw ones, right? We get it in the ice creams or having any kind of food. Nowadays we get it in the restaurant. So when we talk about these wooden spoons, what is the category? Where does it go? Dry waste or wet waste?
So these wooden spoons will go in your wet waste because they are compostable. They can be composted, so it can go in your wet waste. It should not go into the dry. So that's why people may get confused there as well. So we have to put. There are actually, if you look at some of the Western European countries who are, or even some cities in North America, they pretty much have website where they define each of these categories, and there are variety of things we use. So it's quite natural for us to get confused with different categories.
Yes, absolutely, and that is why I took this example. So, sir, where does the recyclable go after it has been picked up and for processing? I mean, most of the time I throw when I do these shopping from Amazon or Flipkart, I throw away these boxes. So where does it go?
So once it gets picked up by the recyclers, which could be depending on where you are, it could be, say if you are in a big apartment complex, you might be having some people who will collect it from your home itself and then take it down, and from the down it is taken by the recyclers. So it ends up back into the economy, especially the clean ones. Once the dirty ones becomes difficult to reach. That's why I keep on saying that try to keep the clean. These are resources. These are actually not waste. That's why we call it material recovery facility. That recycling centers are called material recovery facility. Use of word waste is not there at all. So many of the waste management offices now around the world, they don't call waste. They all call resource recovery and management. Resource recovery. So this resource, which is your waste, the recyclables, once it gets picked up by the recycler, it goes back. Say plastic will go back and used in different products. Even when you see those IPL T-shirts in India, we watch cricket too much. And then if you even that one day clothes, when you see those shiny T-shirts, they have recycled plastic. Say you and I buy those T-shirts which is for walking or running purposes, those athletic, they have recycled plastics. So then paper, you buy any of these text like a notebook today, you just flip on the back, you will see this much recycled content, 10%, 15%. Whether you buy Classmate or whether you buy Camelin, whichever brand you buy, you will see some sort of like recycled paper content is there. Tissue paper is made from the paper. New paper from we make packaging material from the cardboards. Even the egg cartons, as you see those egg cartons
Glass
when you
bottles
go buy
also.
glass bottles get to recycle. So most of if we keep these items clean, there is glass can get recycled, metals get recycled, aluminum cans number one in recycling. So they have market, they come back to the economy, and that really helps a lot to the economy to bring these resources back.
Correct. And this way we can make these attempts and ensure that our footprint on earth is minimal.
Yeah, that's
and
correct.
We can contribute towards the environment.
Yes, because just take the example of aluminum cans. It is if you have to buy a certain amount of aluminum sheets from virgin material, it takes almost 3 to 4 times more energy to do that. So as comparison to getting it from the recycled aluminum cans.
Correct.
So it becomes, if you are reducing the energy footprint, energy means what? Coal-based thermal power plant, or even whatever energy sources you use, everything has environmental footprint. So if you can reduce energy footprint, we don't have to mine for aluminum. So if you are using aluminum back from the recycling, you don't have to go mine it. So there is a lot of benefit comes. So that's why recycle does help. Sometimes it seems to be costly in a short term, but when you look at the long term cost, actually it comes out to be much more economical.
Correct. But sir, tell me something, that why when we talk about garbage, why does garbage makes people irrational? Why do people behave irrationally? It's a throwaway lifestyle which can be seen in these modern days. Where do you see these things going in a long term?
Yes, so in terms of that's where behavior, policy, all those things comes in picture. Unfortunately, in like society like ours, which we were much better in the past actually. If you look at if you talk to your grandfather and all that, they will have a much better things to tell about how we used to manage the waste. I still remember in my village, and we have a backside kind of a hole in our village backyard. And then we used to put all the year-long vegetable waste and food waste there. It will become natural compost. During the growing season, it will be taken out and used as an organic fertilizer. So, but now since we moved to the cities, it's all houses are getting smaller, so we cannot expect people to do that on their personal basis. But yes, as a community, probably we can do that. As a city, we can do that. Those kind of practices. So that's where. But irrational behavior comes because we kind of in India, one thing is there. We have kind of said that garbage management is somebody else's business. It's not my business. I can create waste.
Do it.
I can create waste, and then after creating the waste, see, I will eat the potato chips from the chips packet, but as soon as the chips is over, that packet becomes a waste, and I'll not even touch it. My maid will touch it, or somebody else will handle it, and then it will go into the waste. So that, and as long as one chips is left there, it's a valuable for me. But as soon as it's gone, we are not taking care of that. So we are producing waste, but unfortunately, we think that managing that waste is not my job. It's not my responsibility. So that's where it has to. That's where it has to change. That mindset needs to change, and part of it will change from the legislation, from penalties. Humans, you have to have a carrot and a stick both. So sometimes you have to. Sometimes you need to use the stick part in terms of tougher regulations, fines, and all that. So that's
rightly said.
Yes.
Yes, rightly said. I think penalties would work on people, as you're saying. When you give the carrot and stick example.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. And See, I remember our previous president, Dr. Kalam, used to give a example that whenever somebody lands in Singapore from India, he will not throw away anything, even if he has some candy wrapper, he will keep it in the pocket, and then he will find the dustbin and put it there. But the same person, when it lands in Delhi, he will just throw it wherever he can, because he knows that if he throws something in Singapore, he will be caught and he will have minimum of few $100 fine.
Correct.
In Delhi, it's a chalta hai attitude, like yaar chalta hai kya hai sab hai. So that's that attitude that and see, we keep our houses very clean. I have lived many parts of the world. I have seen that Indian houses are actually much cleaner than many other houses if you go inside the house. But we take all the waste from our houses and just dump it on the street.
Correct.
We don't think that the entire country is our own country. Like sometimes I say, just on 15th August, 26th January, putting the tricolor is not patriotism. Patriotism is when you take care of the country on a day-to-day basis.
True.
So that's, and we are a bit lacking on that, unfortunately. We think that once our house is clean, but outside the street will be dirty, and we don't pay attention. Somebody else's job. It's not my job. So
people don't mind throwing waste. People don't mind spitting on the road. So it's like, as you said, it's a chalta hai attitude with us. Yeah.
So that becomes a problem. That's the, and that can change. There are few things needs to happen. Of course, carrot and stick part is there, but we have to make things easy for the people too. Say, if you don't have the dustbin, say, going back to Dr. Kalam's example of Singapore and Delhi, Singapore, the person will find a dustbin in maybe walking 15, 20, 30 steps. In Delhi, if you don't find dustbin, even walking up to say 100, 500, 200 steps, you will tend to you will not carry it for a long period of time. So we have to make it easy for people to behave responsibly.
Right.
We want persons to behave responsibly. So there are one is, of course, we have to tell them what is the responsible behavior. Many of them know, and then responsible behavior in terms of what we talked earlier, in terms of what is wet, what is dry, so that they don't confuse, and they should put it in the proper bin. And then we give them the bin, also accessibility to the bins. So that is, and then our ULBs should collect it also in a segregated form. One of the problems that we see in many cities and towns today, we are doing source segregation at home, but the truck when comes in, they mix everything together. So if you are watching that truck, that they are mixing it every day together, like this waste together, wet and dry is mixed together. So you don't have the incentive to segregate anymore. You feel like, why should I do it? Like I'm putting 10-15 minutes of my time, whether I do it, whether my maid servant do it, whoever does that. We are putting some time to make wet and dry segregation, but then the truck mixes it together.
Correct.
So why the truck mixes it together? Because they don't have proper truck.
Right.
It's not that they want to mix it together. It's just that they don't have the either proper capacity. So we have to work at all these different levels to make it happen.
All these areas needs to be worked on, and these areas needs attention. Actually, people want to do it, but as you said that accessibility is also very important. Correct. So with your increasing responsibilities, like you have n number of responsibilities, and you have dedicated your life towards sustainability. You are passionate towards the environmental sector. Let's talk about the most valuable thing you have threw away in your life.
You mean the waste that we have produced, or like?
No, any valuable
thing that
you have thrown away.
Valuable thing that I have thrown away in the, you mean as a waste in the waste stream, or
yes.
So valuable thing, pretty tough question. It's because so many times you kind of think about, okay, what it could be. So in terms of, we like when you look at some of these electronic waste, e-waste, they tend to be costly. So, but luckily, we do research on e-waste as well.
Right.
So whenever these electronics from my home gets really bad, cannot be used anymore, I use it in my lab. So I just
Okay.
take it apart and use it in my lab research. But yes, we do tend to dispose some of these costly items when they are not in usable form. So many times, if you think about valuable in monetary way, e-waste kind of comes on top because they are costly stuff. But it has to be. There are now many cities and towns, including ours, have a designated e-waste like a waste collector, and then you can put it there. We do have on campus, we do have there will be a event where e-waste gets collected. So e-waste from the houses could be brought there, and then it is sent for recycling and all that. So that's what I would say in terms of
Okay. So when we are talking about e-waste, so can electronic waste be recycled? Because the problem is not always clear if electronic waste is valuable or not, because it contains material that may or may not be worth money.
Electronic waste is actually one of the I would say one of the most profitable waste stream if you go for recycling and resource recovery. It is a bit tough to recycle, especially if you look at electronics. Any electronics, you have what? You will have some glass, you have some plastics, you can have some metals, and then you have the printed wire boards, circuits, and all that. So glass, metal, plastic, once the e-waste is disassembled, like if you have a central processing unit CPU, when the CPU is disassembled, the glass part or the plastic part or the metal part can go to the traditional metal recycler, plastic recycler. And what the problematic portion is the printed circuit board, which has a lot of heavy metals and other critical minerals there. So that we do have some companies in India already. Most of it we used to send overseas earlier, but there are some companies which has come up who does it in a more. They try to do this precious metal recovery, we call it, or critical metal recovery. They recover it and then they use it. Globally, if you look at, we had Olympics in Japan last year, and there the medals used in the Olympic game were all the gold, silver, and bronze medal. That metal used to make them were all recovered from electronic waste.
Wonderful.
So it's a pretty profitable business, and especially in today's context when we are talking about looking at critical minerals, when we are trying to transition towards green technologies. Most of these green technology, whether you talk about EVs, you talk about solar panels, you talk about wind energy, they require many of these critical minerals, which is available in electronic waste.
Okay.
So if we can try to do the resource recovery from here and use it on these different industries. So that's where India is looking at. There was our Prime Minister had a agreement we had an agreement between India and Australia on this particular aspect, on critical minerals, resource recovery, and all that. So that's because Australia is already kind of doing a lot of things in this particular sector.
Right.
So India is trying to partnership with Australia. These are some geopolitical issues as well, because most of the critical minerals right now, mostly it's coming from China and some other only very few countries have it.
Okay.
And so we have to look at the secondary resource, which is the waste material. So from waste material we should try to recover these critical minerals.
Right.
And so that is it's quite a like a important sector as of now, especially as we are moving towards green technology.
Correct. So many decisions of ours we make in our everyday lives have a major impact on the planet.
Yeah, that's true. Because is in fact the way if you drive a big SUV versus if you don't carpool, That's if you use big cars, even see in Delhi, even after, of course, we have so much of traffic, but we in countries like us, we need to really focus a lot on public transportation, good quality public transportation. So because if we can use public transport, I would love to use public transport. I don't want to take out my car unless I have, because it's a parking hassle, like everything, a lot of hassles are there. But if if you can manage with a smaller car, but we tend to buy bigger and bigger cars. Marketing is also there for bigger and bigger cars. So that is one. Then even buying clothes, when you buy clothes unnecessarily, we buy too much clothes, especially in upper middle class or higher class people. So that also has very simply, we have been taught in schools in terms of how long you should take shower. So that's also that using water responsibly, isn't it? So
that should be introduced in our school syllabus also. It's important.
Yeah, it is there. If you look at the CBSE syllabus for the EVS, the environmental science, it does talk about all these in terms of using water responsibly, and don't produce waste, try all those, reduce, reuse, recycle, everything is taught. Only thing is that as a kid we learn all that, but as we grow up we forget. If I give you one example, we did a study when I was in Tennessee. I was teaching in Tennessee in US. So we put a source segregated bin, 3-way bin, one for the recyclables, one for compostables, food waste and others, so wet and dry, and then we had non-recyclables, non-compostable. And we put that bin in elementary school, in middle school, in high school, and in the university. Same bin. With the elementary school, we had the teachers tell the kids that what needs to be done, and of course we had the pictures and everything on those bins as well. What should go where? What kind of waste should go where? Can you guess who did the best?
The children.
It's the elementary school kids.
Correct.
Yeah, because once their teachers tells them something, they follow it very religiously.
Yes.
Like many times I have seen with my daughter that she will be working on a math problem, and then I will tell that, oh, we can do it slightly in a different way too. No, this is how my miss has told me. So you must be having the similar experience. So once something is said to a small kid, they follow it very religiously. Absolutely. As we get older, we saw it, even the university students who are supposed to be much knowledgeable than elementary school, they did the worst. They did the worst in terms of segregating the waste. So it's just, that means that we need to reinforce. We have to reinforce this message again and again and again, so that we keep on we keep, because maybe we get busy with so many other things, or something happens and then we don't really pay attention